came home and moved in with my in-laws until we found a place of our own.
Was that over on Grace Avenue or down on Goodwin or?
On Exchange Street. The family lived at 343 West Exchange, which doesn't exist anymore now because it was a house that was connected with Glendale Cemetery.
Wasn't that down there by Yakiminis, where Yakiminis used to be?
About 3 doors from the old Yakiminis, yes. Up the street, and the house was furnished to Grandpa Collins because he was a sexton in the Glendale Cemetery. The house belonged to the cemetery. And it was a big old house with a barn in the back and all that sort of stuff. And there was a tribe of them living in there.
Now, were they all at home at the time? Uncle Doak and Betty and...
Oh yes, they were all there. In fact, Margaret, which we called Honey for years, had her husband, Sam Nichols, was in there too. And of course, when I got out of service, I moved in there too. There were 9 of the Collins, and they were all there. And then Sam Nichols and I were 2 more, and the parents. It was quite a deal.
That kind of got you used to living around a bunch of people. You probably wasn't too bad when you had the big tribe of your own. How did everybody settle on Hall Street?
Well, that's a kind of a long story. I used to stop, particularly when I worked at an evening shift at the Firestone. I had a shift when from 2 to 10, and so of course by 10 o'clock at night, my beloved Gertrude would have the children that we had at that time in bed asleep, and I didn't want to come home and wake stuff up, and so I used to stop in the Yakiminis, which was 3 doors away, and sometimes get a snack or a beer or 2, and then go from there. I'd go home. But I met a bunch of barflies, I guess you'd call them, who were a lot of them were quite prominent business people, and course of that, and there were actually about 7 people who built the Yakiminis business. And one of those people was a real estate broker. In fact, 2 of them were in the real estate business, but this one, John Bew, was a big-time broker. And of course he knew my circumstances, in fact, and a bunch of us used to shake dice to see who would buy the drinks. At the time, beer was 10 cents and whiskey was 15 cents a shot. And we would shake dice game, and somebody would get stuck. And of course, when I get stuck, they all cried their eyes out because they didn't figure I could afford it. I couldn't, as far as that goes, except I didn't get stuck very often. And it was a deal too. People used to do things for me, but I never liked. I didn't object to it. But Johnny Bew approached me one day and he said, "Look," he said, "you should have a house of your own." So I was paying rent in a little house in back up the street, Exchange Street, from the Collins mansion at the time, and we were paying $26 a month, or $25 a month or something for a little 2-room house in the back, which was quite a thing at that time. People would have a main house out on the street, and they'd have a small house in the back, which gave them rental income. So we had a small house in the back. And John said he had this house up. He was supposed to sell it for Canadian Life Insurance Company. This was just before World War II, and our government was in a policy of, at that time, of cash and carry for Great Britain. Of course, the Congress said we wanted nothing to do with the impending war and the war in Europe, and we weren't supposed to participate in any way to help either side in that war between Great Britain and Germany. But Franklin Roosevelt decided better, and he instituted a policy that we were not helping England if we sold them stuff on a cash and carry basis. We wouldn't deliver anything. It was, as I say, cash and carry. England could buy what they wanted, but they had to come over here and pick it up at the docks and take it themselves. And so Britain was putting a great deal of pressure on their Canadian interests to get American dollars, liquidate. And this Canadian insurance company had a lot of properties around the Akron area that they had, you know, repossessed mortgages and all that kind of stuff. And so they had this big old house on Hall Street, which was in need of a lot of really turned out minor repairs, and they wanted $6,000 for it. And John B. decided that would be an ideal place for me and for us, because we had, I think, 5 children at the time, and the 6th one was on the way. And this big house was for sale for $6,000. And I said, well, there's no way I could raise $6,000 or whatever, because I no writing, whatever. Didn't have any money. So he said, well, don't worry about the $6,000. He said, that's negotiable. He said, we'll get the house if you want it. He said, if you can raise $500. So eventually I borrowed the $500 from Aunt Gracie, and we negotiated. And Johnny Bew guided my negotiations while he was supposed to sell the stuff for the Canadian insurance company. It was kind of a conflict of interest, I guess. It would be frowned upon today, but I wound up buying a house for $3,150. Of course, I had it inspected by my friend Paul Henley, who was in the home building place. We listed a whole bunch of repairs that the house needed, and went through everything under the sun that conceivably could be wrong with it. We had a list of repairs that you wouldn't believe, and of course when they tell a insurance company that we would buy the house for the $6,000 if they repaired all this stuff, and they got the reply back that they weren't interested in putting money into the house, they wanted money out of the house, and what would you get for it as is. And so we finally settled that they would take $3,000 for the house as is, but they wouldn't pay him any commission for the sale. And so his commission would be $300. And he said, well, if you want the deal, he said, I'll settle for half the commission and you can pay me that later. So that's why I bought the house for $3,150.
Well, that probably got Gracie started on her tradition of helping people out. I know she's helped out a number of the brothers and sisters, and
I don't know.
the nephews and cousins and everything over the years. Grace and Betty were very benevolent to the family.
They were the bankers. And Uncle Doug Charlie also was co-signer on several of my notes when I refinanced and for it. I juggled money for years.
Now, how did Ted and Ruth Eade and the rest of the family end up living down there? There was quite a crew down there for a number of years. I know Bob and Peg Collins lived there and down across the street, and Honey lived there.
We had a real deal on that because the same guy that sold me my house said, "Oh, you had a very good deal for me." There was a double house and a single house right across the street with the driveway in between and a 3-car garage in the back and all this sort of stuff. And this whole piece of property was available for, I think it was $6,700 or something like that. And I should buy it because it would be a great investment for me. I lived right across the street and I could easily supervise it and become a landlord, renter. No, I didn't want to do that, and I didn't have any money anyway. But it was such a good deal, and this was considerably after my deal, so it wasn't involved with the Canadian and the cash and carry deal. But in any case, we've worked out a deal where Sam and Honey Nichols would take the single house, and the Eades and the Collinses Bob Collins would split the double. And so they bought the unit across the street, the three of them. And they split it took some cash to swing that particular deal. They each had to come up with, I think, $650 or $675 in cash to buy out the existing mortgage or some sort of a deal like that. Anyway, it was a very good price, but it was a deal that required more than $600 a piece from the three of them up front, which of course was part of the reason why the price was down. And I remember that Ted Eade, I went out with Ted Eade, and he borrowed just $600 and some from his stepfather, whom he just totally disliked at the time. He was Lebanese or something who was running a restaurant, and Ted's mother was working for him and had married him, and he and Ted did not get along at all, and he was, trying, but we went out there and talked to the man. He went in the back room and come out with the money and just said, I guess that got them reconciled or whatever. And I think maybe Bob and Honey and Sam Nichols had their share, but I think Bob Collins probably got his share from Aunt Grace and Betty.